Let's do it, baby.
Bring it.
Can I just tell you what I'm tired of?
Yes.
I'm tired of perimenopause.
Are you in perimenopause?
Oh, I'm 100% in perimenopause. You wanna know how I know 100%? Because when they put me on the pill a couple months ago for all my other problems, so
Yeah.
many random things that I was experiencing that I didn't understand sort of stopped. Like, the baby hot flashes I was having at specific spots in my
Oh.
cycle. Yeah,
Mhm.
those stopped. Mhm. And I don't wanna have them. I've had a taste, and I would be happy to live a life free of that.
Free of that. Mhm. Absolutely. I'm not having the hot flashes. Um,
It was, like, at a very specific point in my cycle every month, I would have this period. It was always at, like, work. Well, you spend most of your life at work, so and I was
yeah.
kinda like, "Did somebody turn up the heat? Oh my god. Why is it" running around
Wow.
like a lunatic, and all of my coworkers like, "Alyssa, are you in menopause?" And I'm like, "No, I think you guys just turned up the heat." And then it would pass, and then it wouldn't happen again for another month, and then it so it wasn't, like, consistent like all the other ladies that are older than me on the day shift that have menopause, and you come in
Right.
and the air conditioning is set at, like, 0.
Because that's the thing, right? With perimenopause, nothing is consistent. Like
No.
everything's wackadoodle. That's the thing with it. Sucks.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
goodness.
I'm sure there's a few of our listeners who can relate.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sure some understand. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And you know what? I don't think they don't tell us enough about what's gonna happen to us.
They really don't. And it's infuriating. I don't know why you felt like this needed to be a secret.
I think that it should be shouted from the rooftop.
I I also wonder how long perimenopause has been like a thing.
Well,
You know
so
what
many
I'm
things are so weird, like, they're just, like,
Yeah,
weird things.
yeah. You got the itchy skin yet? Because that's fun.
I don't have itchy skin. I had, like, hot flashes. Um, Everything was just kind of all over the place,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
nausea, not nausea, headaches, not headaches,
Mhm. Get a little bit of brain
brain
fog sometimes
fog.
too. Yep. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
like, just weird things, just
Weird. Just
weird things.
strange. Strange.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
let me tell you, if and when you get to the flash moment in your life, it is an interesting feeling.
Oh my.
It is not it is yeah, it is something it is a warmth like no other.
I'm not looking forward to it. I've seen my mother with her flashes.
Mhm,
I've seen her. So,
mhm,
mhm. Anyway,
yeah. Anywho,
what have you been reading, or what have you just finished?
so I have this new slot of reading time in my life called PT, where when I, when I'm, getting iced or stimmed or whatever, and I'm just sitting there.
Yeah.
So I have been reading some random things, and one of those things that I read is this. It's self-pubbed but she's like the head of the Jane Austen Society for Australia. She's like the chairwoman or whatever, and has been for years. Susanna Fullerton, and this is Jane Austen and crime, and
Oh,
it's a whole look at crime in the Georgian period and like what was a crime, a lot of things. How were punishments doled out, how those things can be seen in Jane Austen's novels, the things that Jane Austen maybe didn't talk about and maybe why she didn't, her connections to crime.
mm,
She has an aunt that uh, It sounds a little sus, but then it also sounds like her aunt is a little bit of a klepto, but she was arrested for potentially stealing some lace, and like what would now be a petty crime is actually something that could have got you like, I don't know, like shipped to Australia. Um, you know, back then, but today we'd be like, shoplifting, it's bad, but like, you know,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not gonna go to federal prison for it probably.
right.
Um, but anyway, so she had this whole lengthy thing. She and her husband actually moved into this is probably one of my favorite things about like old-timey crime, right? So back in the day
Old-timey crime.
back in the day, you had these like really dingy, dark, terrible prisons, right?
Yeah,
But the entire prison system, like, ran off of, like, bribes, basically, and you had to pay for everything, right? So if you had
yeah.
money, you could, like, move your entire family into, like, the head jailer's house or whatever, and you could, like, dine with them at their table and live
What?
in, like, a home, right? This is what, like, Jane Austen's aunt did, like, with her husband as they, like
What? That's real?
so she was, like, in yeah, like, she was, like, in jail and, she's, fighting all these things. She eventually gets, whatever, like, acquitted or whatever, and she goes back to her regular life. There were people that moved their entire families into jail with them, not just, like, debtor's prison, like, actual prison, because, like, if you say you're, like, the breadwinner for your family, and now you're in jail, where's your family going? So you could all go together. Um
I am
Like, it's
what?
remarkable, and then also it's, like, really gruesome too, all the stuff with poaching and, like, there's a lot of, like, really harsh crimes for poaching, and, like, you had to have all these like, who could actually shoot animals on property was really highly regulated, and you had to have, like, special licenses. I mean, I guess it is regulated now, right? Like, you have to get a hunting license and all that stuff, but, like, no one's gonna, like, put a man trap out and, like, snatch you in the woods because you went
Right.
out without your license and, were shooting a deer, but also, like, we generally have food for people, and if you are going out and shooting a deer because you don't have food now, I don't think you're probably at as much risk as you were in the Georgian
Wow.
period of being, like, hanged for it, because it was quite a crime, and, so it's just remarkable to see, like, the kinds of things that were, like, capital punishment crimes, the number of things that were criminal acts that would get you put in jail or, like, sent transported to the colonies or something like that, and, like, no wonder why crime rates were so high if everything is a crime.
Right, exactly, exactly. That is
But
bonk.
then it was really interesting to see how it relates back to our novels too, because there are
Yeah.
things like and it sounds like Mansfield Park is the one that has the most, in it to relate to this topic, and it does make sense because there's a lot of talk of poaching in Mansfield Park, there's a lot of talk of, there's a lot about, like, adultery and divorce as well,
Mm.
and there's, it's all very interesting, and the divorce stuff is really interesting because divorce was really like it wasn't like a legal thing in like it is today, it was a lot more of a religious kind of contract than it was, like, strictly a legal contract. Obviously, there were legal things
Okay.
tied into it because, once you got married, you were the property of your husband, and
Yeah.
so that's why, like, if you were found cheating, the husband could put a suit against the person that was you were cheating on him with, and that person would have to pay the husband money in it was called, like, criminal conversation. It was like you go and do mediation, and
Oh my goodness.
it's like how, if somebody defiled your property, you get
Yeah.
money for that. So, it's much like, if someone broke your window, they would have to pay for the window. If you screw somebody's wife, you have to
Oh my
pay for the
goodness.
defiling of their wife. And it's all very fascinating. But like divorces are something that is like very difficult to come by. I think you can get like legally separated in some way, but you can't get remarried. But then to actually get divorced to the point where you can be remarried is like it's a very difficult and sneaky path, and it involves like I think the crown has to approve it. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is wild.
So it's a really interesting book. So if you want to read about crime in the Georgian period and and have a little taste of Jane Austen while you do it. I highly recommend it. I thoroughly enjoyed myself sitting there with my stem on my back or my heating pack at the end of PT, just like reading.
Wow. That's wild. I
Mhm.
My mouth's on the floor.
Yeah, so it was all kinds of stuff, and like it's just really interesting. Like the stuff they would do to highwaymen. Like, so, like, highwaymen were really romanticized in a lot of ways, but then also, obviously, they were you were robbing people, so, like, you were gonna get in trouble. And, like, they would, like, hang them in these, like, metal cages along the highways to as, like,
Wow.
warning to, I guess, other highwaymen. Like, it's just you think about, like, all these prim and proper ladies in, like, little white frocks dressing dancing around in their little ballet slippers, but, like, there's, like, dead bodies hanging on the
Right.
side of the
Right.
road.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my gosh. That sounds really fascinating.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I enjoyed it.
Jeez. Okay.
So anyway, what do you got?
Okay. Back to the happy place of where what I'm reading. Okay.
Mhm.
Not that Rosenfeld book. Okay.
Yeah.
I recently started Jazz by Toni Morrison.
Oh, nice. I don't think I own that
Oh
one.
my gosh. All right. I'm only
No.
I'm only 41 pages, 40 pages in. And it opens and we learn that Joe Trace um is a man who's been seeing this woman, very young woman, and
Mhm.
it is the happiest he's ever been, and he just loves her so much that he murdered her. And and
I hate when that happens.
yeah, I hate when that happens. And during the funeral, and her name is Dorcas, the woman that he loved and murdered.
I'm sorry,
And
that's a
during
terrible name.
it is a terrible name, but it also feels so like country. And then also during Dorcas's funeral, Joe's wife Violet comes in a murderous rage and tries to, you know, basically re-kill the dead body and just causes a scene. And now the whole town's mad at her. Um, the Reading these opening lines, these first few pages of this book, I don't, I mean, I'm just shaking my head like, yes, the whole time because it's like words just like honey's dripping off of them. You know what I mean? Like honey is dripping off of all of these words. Morrison has already like put us in like a song. It's very rhythmic how she writes. It feels very seductive, her writing. It makes
Mhm.
me want to light a smoke, grab a bee, and sit outside and let the wind blow through my hair. And I don't even drink and I don't smoke. But that's what it makes me like feel like I want to do. You know what I mean? There is a it's I don't know. It's like it's carrying me away. So I'm getting a little like a teeny bit of backstory about Violet. Apparently, this outrage that she displayed at the funeral was not just outrage per se, but yet another one of her quote unquote crazy moments, as the neighbors in the story would tell it. There have been other
Mhm.
occasions where Violet has done things that did not seem like she was in her right mind. Although no one has really told her husband Joe that she suffers from something mentally, they just kind of make little sly comments here and there. But like the neighbors know, like Violet's a little off, right? Like, you
Mhm.
that funeral is not the first time she went crazy, that kind of a thing. And we're
Mhm.
learning more about how Joe and Violet met, how they were brought together. They were down in the country. They came up to the city to have this, a bigger and better life. We're learning about Dorcas. Dorcas was lost both her parents when she was a child, and so her aunt raised her. And I've just gotten to the point in the book where Violet has gone to see the aunt of Dorcas to have some conversations. It's very, very tense. It's very odd how the aunt is upset with Violet as if Violet were the other woman but her young niece was. It's a very strange thing going on in these conversations with these women. And the aunt of Dorcas just is every day, she's bloodthirsty, not to get back at Joe for murdering her niece, but to really hurt and harm Violet. So it's a lot of stuff going on here, and it's so where I'm just getting to those places where we're unraveling what's going on in these people's individual lives and how we got here. But man,
It
this right,
sounds juicy.
it's very juicy. But god dang it, Alyssa, this writing. I mean, come on, Morrison. Ooh, ease off the gas. I can't take all this. It's just, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's too
because
much.
I was waiting for Caleb to get out of school, and I was like, let me just, start this book. And I'm in the car reading, and I'm just like, and I'm saying to myself, I'm saying out loud, like, my God, good grief. Mm, I mean, this is what I'm doing because it's just like, I'm also like, how do you write like that? You write like
Uh,
that. I just, it's
most of us
breathtaking. If I'm
don't.
being honest, it's breathtaking. So I
Most of
cannot
us don't.
wait to get through this book. It's very short. It's only 200 and 229 pages.
Hmm.
So, but I need to be alone with it. I need to
I
be
like that
alone.
addition too.
It's beautiful, right? I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so good so far. Jazz by Toni Morrison.
One day I will start my Toni Morrison journey. That will
Yes,
occur. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. CL,
Yeah.
what has brought us here today?
Well, guess what's around the corner? Nonfiction November. So we thought we would
Mhm.
just share 5 books we plan to read during Nonfiction November, and yeah, let's get into it. I feel like I picked some really good ones. I mean, I have so many nonfiction books to choose from, but I'm really happy with my selection for the month.
I kinda like my selection too.
Yeah.
Pleased.
Shall we? Would you like to kick it off?
I can kick it off. So I've been thinking about this book a lot. So this is actually a reread, but I want to reread A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably one of her more famous essays. She gets asked to talk to this university. I think she's talking at Oxford's Women's College. And she formulates this whole essay around this idea of what if Shakespeare had a sister and a sister
Oh.
that was equal to Shakespeare, and she had the same talent, the same genius, the same, ability to write. But what would her legacy be? What would her life be? And how would she, what would her existence be? So this imaginary woman never writes a word and dies by her own hand, her genius unexpressed. But had she been allowed to create Urges Wolf, she would have reached the same heights as her immortal sibling. In this classic essay, Virginia Woolf takes on the establishment, using her gift of language to dissect the world around her and give a voice to those who have none. Her message is simple. A woman must have an income and a room of her own in order to have the freedom to create. And I think it's like it is a beautifully phrased argument, that I think we see come up in a lot of the things that I've been reading in the last year or so, about sort of like the wifedom
Mm,
discussion,
yeah.
and how that puts constraints or challenges, for women generally, but then specifically for women
Yeah.
creatives. I've been reading it sort of from that angle, and like how it adds that layer of difficulty, because like where especially for like mothers, like if the mother doesn't take answer all the child's needs, it's seen as more of like a neglectful act. But if the father, who is the writer, goes to their room and ignores the children, it's seen as like work. It's the same
Yep.
thing as. So I've just been thinking about it a lot. I want to reread it. It's got some really like remarkable passages, and I think it remains rather timeless, um, in its messaging. I mean, some of the things, like I think she says you need like $50 or $500 or something like that, uh, and a room of your own. And I think you need a little bit more of an income than that, but
Ah,
It's really well done. I really enjoyed this one. So yeah, remove one's on.
wow. Okay. I love that. I love that. Okay. All right. For my first one, I'm going to be reading Jesus and John Wayne: How White Evangelicals Corrupted a Faith and Fractured a Nation by Kristen Kobe or Cobes or Cobbs Dumez. I just butchered your name,
Get ready
Kristen.
to be pissed.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. And I think that this is the absolute right time to be reading this.
Oh,
Uh
yes.
yes, absolutely, right? All right. Jesus and John Wayne is a sweeping account that reveals how American evangelicals have worked for decades to replace the Jesus of the Gospels with an idol of rugged masculinity and Christian nationalism, or, in the words of one modern chaplain, with a spiritual badass. As Kristen explains, the key to understanding this transformation is to recognize the role of culture in modern American evangelicalism. Evangelical books, films, movies, clothing, and merchandise influence the beliefs of millions, and and evangelical popular culture is teeming with muscular heroes, mythical warriors, and rugged soldiers, men like John Wayne, Mel Gibson, Donald Trump, and the Duck Dynasty clan, who assert white masculine power in defense of Christian America. The values at the heart of white evangelicalism today: patriarchy, authoritarian rule, aggressive foreign policy, fear of Islam, ambivalence towards Me Too, and opposition to Black Lives Matter and the LGBTQ community have transformed the faith with enduring consequences for all Americans. I know this is going to really F my head up, but I think this is going to be an extraordinarily important read.
You're gonna be so mad. Um, and I think if the Cheeto wins, I think you'll be even madder, while reading this.
Yeah,
Um, it is a frightening book. Yeah, it's so
yeah,
infuriating.
yeah.
I kinda, like,
Prepare for
remember
my
every
incoming
place I
text
was listening
messages.
to it. Oh, please tell me everything. I
Yeah.
remember every place I was while I was listening to it. I went on so many walks just so I could listen to this book, um, 'cause it's so enraging.
Mm.
Did you see just to get a little political a little second, did you see the schmuck that's been going around saying, he's probably a pastor or something, that, we need to take back women's right to vote because it's the Christian way?
Nope, haven't
It's
seen that
divide
one.
it's dividing households and that men are in charge of the household and to have women going and canceling out the house.
Oh
that
boy.
that is just like a taste of what you're gonna experience while reading.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think a lot of women are even understanding when they say "Make America Great Again." It's like, girl, you know that means putting you in your place, right? Are you not understanding that?
What's really hard is when I see people, like some people that are related to me that have lived through a time when they couldn't have a bank account without a
And it wasn't
man
that long
signing off
ago.
on them,
It wasn't that long
and
ago.
they seem to not see that, like, all the things that they have actually worked for, and they swear they're not feminists, and all the things that they have gained and done
Yeah,
are in threat, but under threat, but yeah, it's been an infuriating
yeah,
many years now.
exactly.
And Jesus and John Wayne will give you a nice background of how we ended
Yes,
up here.
that's why
Just
I
so you
had
know,
to get it.
Reagan plays a big role in it.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
So get ready for Reagan.
Thank you for the warnings.
You're
Thank
right.
you. Yeah.
I look forward to all the messages.
Yes.
Um, anyway, so hello, Mercy. I don't know if you just heard the stampede up the stairs. She's going to hide in her room.
Oh, that's sweet.
She likes to hide in the beds. Alright, so this is the other McNally that came in my, like, fall McNally editions, subscription, and this is a memoir. It's by Jane Ellen Harris, who I believe is, like, an anthropologist
Mm.
or something like that. It's called The Reminiscences of a Student's Life, and this was actually published, it's a very skinny little thing, by Bloomsbury, by
Oh.
Virginia Woolf and her husband back in the day, um,
Oh,
back in 1925, and so they've republished this, and it
okay.
is, um, her it's Jane Harrison's, irreverent memoir is of a student who declared Victorian education ingeniously useless, who blazed a trail for female scholars, and who changed the way we see the ancient world. Growing up in the Yorkshire countryside, Harrison showed an early aptitude for languages. By the age of 17, with the help of a governess, she had learned Greek, Latin, German, and some Hebrew. Unfortunately, having no guide, she began with the Psalms, which are hard nuts to crack. This is a quote. She went on to become the most influential classicist of her generation. She was a classicist, sorry, not an anthropologist. Drawing on insights of Nietzsche, Bergson, and Freud, and on archaeological research, she helped revolutionize the study of Greek myth. The Great Mother, she wrote, is prior to male divinities. She had an unconventional life. And Mary Beard, who is like a really famous archaeologist and scholar, um, she does a lot of work with like ancient Rome and stuff. She calls this lady her hero. So it just I like the wolf connection and a bunch of
Mm,
other connections. I just like I have to read this little thing. And I love
yeah,
these generations of women that just to go back to like
yeah,
kind of what we were talking about before, all these women that like pushed all these boundaries and how quick crazy brave they were and how much they how they succeeded and were able to. I mean, a lot of times they were just
yeah.
rich white women, right? So, like, you already have a leg up on pretty much the rest of femininity here. But it's still, like, empowering, I think, and fascinating to read, especially if you come at it with some, like, intersectionality as a modern reader, right? Like, you understand that rich
Right.
white women are kind of at the front of the line here, but,
Mhm.
we can all kinda we can all kinda get to a better place if we don't let fascism take over.
How about that? How about that? Yeah. Mhm.
Just a thought.
All right. My next one is Brought Up C by Christina Cook. Catapult sent this to me earlier this year, so thank you, Catapult. I think it was this year. Yeah, it was this year, earlier this year. Okay. Tired of not having a place to land, 20-year-old Akua flies from Canada to her native Jamaica to reconnect with her estranged sister Tamika. Their younger brother Bryson has recently passed from sickle cell anemia, the same disease that took their mother 10 years prior. And Akua carries his remains in a small wooden box with the hope of reassembling her family. Over the span of 2 fateful weeks, Akua and Tamika visit significant places from their childhood, but time spent with her sister only clarifies how different they are and how years of living abroad have distanced Akua from her home culture. Am I Jamaican? She asks herself again and again. Beneath these haunting doubts lie anger and resentment at being abandoned by her own blood. Why didn't you stay with me? She wants to ask Tamika. This is a debut novel that's gotten a lot of
Hmm,
praise, and I'm very excited to read this book. This is Brought Up C by Christina Cook.
interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't heard
Yeah,
of
I
that
haven't
yet.
I've seen some, in my smaller circles, but I'm
Yeah.
excited to get this to this myself.
Alright. I have a fairly popular choice here,
Mm,
and that is Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking, which would be
mhm.
my first Didion. I also got a collection of, like, I think it's 3 of her stories in one bind up. Ba yeah, bind up. But anyway, we got this at my case for 324, just so you know.
Bing.
And this is from one of America's iconic writers, a stunning book of electric honesty and passion. Didion explores an intensely personal yet universal experience, a portrait of a marriage and a life in good times and bad that will speak to anybody who has ever loved a husband, a wife, or a child. And I'm just gonna leave it there.
Mhm.
I don't want to know too much. I just kind of want to go into it and let her take me there. Um, I know this is quite popular for Didion. Um, I would also like to read more of, like, the fictional works as well, but we're gonna start here with the Year of Magical Thinking. It's also the first one that I ever owned, so
Yeah.
that's that. I wish this wasn't the sticker wasn't over it because I can't seem to get it off, but there's this really lovely, speaking of author photos, of
Mm,
her husband, and her daughter, but there's a sticker over it, so
yeah,
it's a little frustrating. But yeah, I'm very curious to see how I get on with this one.
very nice. Very nice. I
She
bought
gets
that
to
book
hear him
for
pick
my
up the
mom.
sticker.
I bought that book for my mom when my stepdad just suddenly died a few
Yeah.
years ago.
I know there's, like, a lot to process, and this book is a lot of processing.
Yeah,
Um, so, yeah.
very nice. So we're both tasting a little bit of Didion because I've got the White Album and
Mhm.
Play It As It
Play
Lay.
it as lace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, here we go. I got it off. Now you can
oh,
see her lovely
fantastic.
face. You can see her lovely face if you're watching the video. If you're not watching
Fantastic.
the video, you can imagine it.
All right. My next one is One Person, One Vote: A Surprising History of Gerrymandering in America by Nick Seabrook.
Oh,
Um, I've had this book for a while. I think Pantheon sent
same,
this to me. What was it? 2 years ago?
same. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. It says
Sadly, I don't know if I'm ready for political books.
I gotta do it. I gotta do it. I gotta do it. In this fascinating, revelatory, and important book, we come to understand how and why gerrymandering is now one of the 21st century's clearest and most present threats to our democracy, and what we must do before it is too late to protect our sacred, hard-fought principle of one person, one vote. So yeah, I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna get into it.
I feel like we're living in a political novel right now, and
We are.
I don't I don't know if I want it broken down for me that
Yeah.
succinctly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, you don't need to pour salt in the wound, and then gasoline, and then light a match.
I know. I know. I just need to just I just need to. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Like, the vinegar of going on TikTok is enough.
I know, right? It's like every time I get on this app, I'm either fighting to stay out from going to hell, or I've come away with some new thing I shouldn't be doing because it's terrible for you, or I've just, I feel completely down and out about this country I live in. Nothing
I
hopeful.
think the hardest thing, and we were talking about this in one of my book groups actually, because there's people, like, all over the world, including, like, United, Emirates, and watching, like, the new airstrikes in Iran,
Hmm.
like, it's terrifying. Like, it's
Yeah.
terrifying, especially this close to an election. It's really terrifying to, like, watch, and the powerlessness that you feel, like, watching things unfold, like, on this global scale, like, out it's so totally out of your control,
Yeah.
and I think to, like, lose even that little bit of control that you feel like you have to vote is even
That's what's
worse. Like
crippling.
like, that is like, the only thing you have is your
Yeah.
vote, and if you start taking that from people,
Right. It's crippling. It's like, my goodness.
yeah.
You know.
Oh, well, and another depressing read,
Let's do it.
I've had this for quite a while, and I just haven't, I've had this since January of 2023, probably before that, I probably got it in the winter of 2022, but this is an arc of Cobalt Red: How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives by Siddhartha Kara, and I have been sort of, like when you just tell Libby, like, another week, for a while now on the audiobook of this, because I do like to listen to my nonfictions in particular, um, because I haven't been ready to
Yeah.
be this angry, and I think that it's probably time. Um, but if you don't know, every piece of technology that we own, whether you want to be as ethical of a consumer as possible, is basically sitting on the back of slave labor, especially in the Congo. So this is,
Yeah.
yeah, and Jesus and I talk about it a lot because, like, I've been trying to predominantly only buy as much as possible, like, open stock, used, refurbished, like, things that were already in the cycle of
Hmm.
electronics, but, like, I to what end is always his set. There's no ethical consumption of their capitalism, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can do all those things to make yourself feel better, but is there really any impact in the end of that chain where the problem is? And I don't think that there is, you know?
Right.
Um, but, I do think there needs to be an awareness of maybe we don't need every new shiny new gadget. She says even though she just bought, like, a brand new e-reader, like, for her birthday, but
Right.
um, but, it is hard. Living
Yeah.
under capitalism sucks. Yeah.
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 What's
I'm
your
gonna
last
have
one?
to throw on our Instagram that book I read about the Congo last year. I gotta dig through and find it because I can't remember the title of it, but I'll throw it on our Instagram as a nonfiction rec because I think that book is really important. It's
Yeah,
really heavy.
There have been a few recently, I feel like, that have been coming out. Um, and there's a collection of essays that I talked about. I think it's by Eula Biss or Bliss. I think her name is Biss.
Hmm.
And it's a collection of essays that she wrote about basically like just struggling with living under capitalism.
Right.
Because I mean that whole like trying to, you know, if you are a conscious consumer, it complicates how you interact with the world,
Yeah.
obviously, but you can never be this you're always gonna be in some sort of moral dilemma, I guess. I think it's called, like, Having and Being or Being and Having or something like that.
Mm.
And, they were really interesting essays, and they intersect with, like, being a mother and, like, buying a home and, like, all these n sort of more normal life sort of things, and then how all those worries and those moral dilemmas seep into what is just, like, a regular life, you know?
Yeah.
And how you're kinda met with them at every turn. Um, so I thought those were really interesting too, to add to the
Whew.
list.
Okay.
We
We've got
still
some
have one
heavy.
more.
We've got heavy books on this list.
Actually, my last one's not that heavy, so
I
we'll
have two
see if we
more.
can how
This
do
is
you have
number
2
4.
more?
This is number 4 for me.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I started, so that's why. So
Okay.
my
Yep.
last that makes
Okay.
sense. That's how
So my
numbers work.
my fourth one is Valley So Low: One Lawyer's Fight for Justice in the Wake of America's Great Coal Catastrophe by Jared Sullivan. Thank
Oh,
you,
interesting.
Knopf, for sending this to me. Like I just got this in the mail yesterday.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. For more than 50 years, a power plant in the small town of Kingston, Tennessee, burned 14,000 tons of coal a day, gradually creating a mountain of ashen waste 60 feet high and covering 84 acres, contained only by an earthen embankment. In 2008, just before Christmas, that embankment broke, unleashing a lethal wave of coal sludge that covered 300 acres, damaged nearly 30 homes, and precipitated a cleanup effort that would cost more than $1 billion and the lives of more than 50 cleanup workers who inhaled the toxins it released. I love reading about environmental catastrophes. I think
How have
it's
I never
important.
heard of that?
I mean, I don't think it's out yet, or maybe it
No,
just
I mean,
came
like,
out.
how have I never heard of this,
Oh,
like,
I don't.
that's
I don't know. It's like that Paradise Valley book that I read 2 or 3 years ago. I had never heard of that. That was disastrous.
they
I mean,
keep
that was a mega disaster,
that sign about it's like, "Remember, kids, if they ever tell you the government isn't lying to you, the
right?
government won't lie to you, they're wrong."
Right. I mean,
Like,
I think
whatever the soundbite is.
these books are so important to read so that we know these things that have gone on, in our own United States of America. So yeah, that's Valley Solo. Boom.
Yeah, read them now before we slide into a fascist street.
Right.
Um,
Better not
so
unhaul any of these books I own. Better keep them all.
so in a slightly cheerier end, I have for you Natural Magic, Emily Dickinson, Charles Darwin, and the Dawn of Modern Science by Renee Berglund. I just find the concept of this book very interesting. It's I
Oh.
mean, yeah, it's a very interesting like mashup of things. So this is a captivating portrait of a poet and a scientist who shared an enchanting view of nature. Emily
Hmm.
Dickinson and Charles Darwin were born at the same time when the science of studying the natural world was known as natural philosophy, a pastime for poets, priests, and schoolgirls. The world began to change in the 1830s while Darwin was exploring the Pacific aboard the Beagle, and Dickinson was a student in Amherst, Massachusetts. Poetry and science started to grow apart, And modern thinkers challenged the old orthodoxies, offering thrilling new perspectives that suddenly felt radical and too dangerous for women. Natural magic entwines the stories of these two luminary 19th century minds whose thoughts and writings captured the awesome possibilities of the new sciences and at the same time strove to preserve the magic of nature. I just think it's a
Mm,
really interesting way to look at this like time period,
yeah.
like natural sciences, biology. I was big bio nerd. I have a degree in biology, and I love Emily Dickinson. So I like when I saw this like weird mashup between like Darwin and Dickinson, I was like, I need
Absolutely.
this book. This yeah. So a little
I love
lighter
it.
note for us here.
Yeah, yeah. I think my last one is a little lighter. Yeah, okay. The Friday
You're like,
afternoon
is
club.
it?
I don't know. I mean, something terrible happens in here, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. This is the Friday Afternoon Club, a family memoir by Griffin Dunn. I visited this indie bookstore in my area called Bard's Alley over
Mhm.
the summer, and I bought 4 books out of there, and this was one of them that I wanted to read. It says, at 8, Sean Connery saved him from drowning. At 13, after the hookup with Janis Joplin, he attended his aunt, Joan Didion, and uncle, John Gregory Dunn's legendary LA launch party for Tom Wolfe's The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. At 16, he got kicked out of boarding school, ending his institutional education for good. In his early 20s, he shared an apartment in Manhattan's Hotel de Aristas with his best friend and soulmate, Carrie Fisher, while she was filming
Hmm.
some sci-fi movie called Star Wars, and he was a struggling actor working as a popcorn concessionaire at Radio City Music Hall. A few years later, he produced and starred in the now iconic film After Hours, directed by Martin Scorsese. In the midst of it all, Griffin's 20-year-old sister, Dominique, a rising star in Hollywood, was brutally strangled to death by her ex-boyfriend, leading to one of the most infamous public trials of the 1980s. The outcome was a travesty of justice that marked the beginning of their father, Dominic Dunn's career as crime reporter for Vanity Fair and a victims' rights activist. And yet, for all of its bold-faced cast of characters and jaw-dropping scenes, the Friday Afternoon Club is no mere celebrity memoir. It is, down to its bones, a family story that embraces the poignant absurdities and best and worst efforts of its lovable, infuriating, funny, and moving characters. Its author, most of all.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. What? That was a lot. That's a
Did
lot of
you s
talking.
That was a lot of talking. Those are a lot of books.
Oh my
Wow,
goodness.
we've talked about a lot of books today.
We really have. Oh
So,
my. You got any book
you
recommendations for the people?
I do, and I'm gonna keep us on a lighter side.
All right.
And, I finally read Gabby Gonzalez's The Next Best Fling, our lovely friend Gabby's
Yeah.
romance novel. She has another one coming out, I think, in spring of 25. Um, so this is about, uh 2 people that are in love with somebody else, who
Mm,
happen to be getting married, not the people they're in love with are getting married, and, of course, they figure out that, those are the wrong people for them, that they are the right
mm,
people for them. So we have Marcella, who's a librarian, and she has sort of always been in love with her best friend, who's marrying somebody else. And her best friend has a brother, Theo, who is, I guess, now an ex NFL player, and he comes back for like the engagement parties and all that. And he's always been in love with his brother's fiance. So this sets them up for like some interesting sort of. It starts off almost like a misunderstanding with everybody else that they've hooked up, and then they kind of just keep on this misunderstanding, and then it turns out that they do kind of want to hook up, and then they do, and it's a really lovely story, and Ben is really terrible, and there's a lot of really great messaging in here about Ben's the brother, by the way, the brother who's
uh,
getting married. He's terrible. I don't like him. Um, he There's a lot of great messaging in here about um keeping literature diverse and making sure kids have access to all sorts of things, all sorts of books, all sorts of experiences. Because Gabby is a librarian, and it's just so good. And
Yeah.
of course, there's a lot of like Mexican American culture that gets wrapped up into it. It's just lovely, and I can't wait for Gabby's next one. And I just enjoyed myself. Yeah, as I've been like trying to get back to doing more stuff, I was like on the treadmill, just listening along.
I
It was
love
good.
it.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot better than Rosenfeld, but I'm not. I'm just gonna leave it alone. Just gonna leave it alone.
I mean, it's just like it's a sweet romance. It's like a little spicy, like there's like a couple sexy scenes, and they're like well done.
Yeah,
They're not over the top, and it's just a nice story. I mean, I don't know if you read it too, but we've read stuff that she's written that has not been published, and she's very good at this. I think
she
Gabby is
is.
hopefully going to have a very long and lucrative little career as both a librarian but also as a published author. So please go
Absolutely.
pick that up.
Absolutely. Okay. My recommendation is The Price of Salt or Carol
Mm.
by Patricia Highsmith. Although she
Mm.
originally published this book under what name? Under the pseudonym Clara Morgan. That's how it was initially. It was Carol by Clara Morgan. So anyway, we meet in this story Teresa and Carol. Teresa is a dressmaker, but she's stuck in this dreadful department store job, and this is not at all what she wants. She is trying to get back to what she
Mhm.
knows how to do, and it seems almost impossible. Well, Carol walks in that department store one day with her daughter. She wants to buy her a Christmas gift, and she runs into Teresa, and it is like kismet for Teresa. Teresa then begins to stalk Carol, who is a married woman, maybe not happily, but she is a married woman, housewife and all. And
Mm.
they begin to start an affair, and they try to have all these stolen moments together, and it seems to be a little bit of like cat and mouse, but also the intensity is growing in their desire to want to be with one another on a more frequent and regular basis. So they set out to take this big trip across the United States. Meanwhile, Carol's husband has gotten wind of what's going on. He's not really sure, but he's gotten wind of something. And he has hired a private investigator to follow them. And so while Carol and Teresa are seemingly trying to figure out, how they're going to like build a life together, that husband has other plans. And when he gets all this dirt that he needs, uh, Carol is met with an ultimatum. And I won't tell you what it is or what she decides, but that's how things kind of shake out. But this is a very like obsessive love story. It is just full of desire and a lot of like just feeling like everything's it's so insatiable, not being able to get enough. So it also feels very dark, right? Because these two women are more or less trapped in their lives.
Yeah.
Teresa's trapped in that stupid department store. Carol is trapped in this marriage. And like, it's not just the husband, like, it's his family. It's just not a good situation at all. So these women are like bursting at the seams to just kind of get out and break free of their lives in general. They just want to break free in general. And it's just interesting watching, like, how Carol's husband just like has her under his thumb. You know what I mean? And it's just
Mhm.
infuriating because this woman just wants to live her life. But, back in those days, you need the help and support of a man. We see it's not going that great for Teresa trying to, work and live on her own. And it's just really a hot god daggone mess the whole way through. It was just great. I loved it. Highly recommend. I don't know how many more books left I have to read of Patricia Highsmith because I did read all of the Ripley series. I don't know what's next, but I love how she writes
I still
characters.
have to get to Ripley.
And I love how she builds tension. She does that extremely well. Um, and I don't know, everything just feels so mature and so grown up and so thought out and so fully developed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that about her writing. So anyway, that is The Price of Salt or Carol by Patricia Highsmith.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I will go down a Highsmith journey one of these days.
Yeah.
There's just too many books. I think I say that every episode. There's too many books,
It's
not enough time.
true. But the Ripley series is great to read anytime.
I'll get
Anytime.
there. I got the
I
first
know.
one.
I know. Oh, that first was gonna ooh. Reading that first one, yeah, that sets you right. Tom Ripley is quite the character. Anyway, I guess that's it. We've done our job here for this episode. Follow us
Mhm,
everywhere at TBR Lowdown. Visit our website, tbrlowdown.com. And listen, don't forget to tell a friend or two or 10 to check
mhm,
out our podcast, subscribe, and leave a review. We need
mhm,
reviews. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, hop on over to Instagram under TBR Lowdown or check out our broadcast channel. We're trying some fun things over there. So,
mhm.
join that, free of charge, of course, and help us build that little community over there. We do still have a Discord. Um, hmm, yeah, we have a Discord. Join that too. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. We are out of here. Bye.
Bye.